Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Shred Show. I love that Ben's already laughing. He just starts to get, when I start my intro, you can just see Ben, like the enthusiasm, the excitement. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, and welcome to the Shred Show Live with, of course, me, Josh Pitts. We've got very special guest, Ben Miller, who we know him, we love him. He's one of the visionaries, one of the best and the brightest in our industry. And when it comes to SimpleNexus, there's always something exciting. And then we have new guests, and I am very grateful for the opportunity to meet Mr. Jordan Brown, CEO of Marketwise Advisors. We're going to be talking about, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to turn up the volume. You're going to want to join us for this entire, you're going to want to share this out because we're talking about the ROI of technology. This is something that this is absolutely brilliant. When I heard about this, I said, this needs to be heard throughout the industry. Everybody should be talking about this. And SimpleNexus is at the forefront, as they always are when it comes to this type of study. But before we get too far into it, as always, if you're joining us live right now, and make sure you comment hashtag shred because you are shredding with us. You're live, you're hanging out with us. And if you're joining us on the replay, make sure you comment hashtag hustle because that means you're out there, you're getting it done, then you're coming back here to get the information you need to go succeed within your business. So Ben, welcome. And Jordan, thank you so much for being on the show, CEO and founder of Marketwise Advisors. So Jordan, tell us a little bit, what is Marketwise Advisors?
So thank you first for inviting me to participate this morning. So Marketwise is a consulting advisory that focuses on the mortgage industry, comprised of traditional management consulting and analytics surrounding it. I founded Marketwise 15 years ago after starting up a number and building up a number of the mortgage technology firms that exist within the industry today. Marketwise's clients cut across nationally, mortgage lenders and vendors. An interesting component of it has been working with top vendors over the years to really dig into technology and to understand what is the true impact of that technology, both from a consumer perspective, but also how can they streamline their operations and really pinpoint their costs.
Interesting. And being that it's technology, of course, SimpleNexus, Ben, is at the forefront. That's why we've had you on the show regularly talking about some of the things that you guys are doing to help the industry to continue to pushing the envelope, which is I'm always excited about. And this is just that. What we're actually going to be talking about today is, Ben, you guys took it upon yourself at SimpleNexus to say, hey, you know what? We know we're doing some great things, but we really want to do everything we can to prove to our clients, to the consumers, that we are really trying to stay ahead of the game and actually help the ROI. This is something that people talk about all the time, Ben, is like, what is the ROI of like our bid? Like, what are we doing? What does the ROI look like? And when it comes to a tech stack, especially, they're like, am I really getting the best bang for my buck? So you guys at SimpleNexus took it upon yourself to basically do a third-party study with Jordan to find out, which, Ben, this is pretty sweet, dude.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for having me. Always a pleasure, and rocking the cool T-shirt there. Love it. So, yeah. So here at SimpleNexus, we're an inquisitive bunch. We're always wanting to see, how do we get better? How do we improve? What value are we delivering to the customer? And we do a lot of interaction with the customer ourselves, right? And they're partners with us to create these technologies, but we wanted third-party validation, right? And there's really no one better or more well-known in the industry than Marketwise to go in and independently validate what's happening with that technology at a vendor. Jordan has such a breadth of knowledge and data on how mortgage companies operate, what are the cost structures, where can technology impact. And we thought this was just a really important study to conduct, because it's easy when you have a lot going on in your company, be it a lender or even us, to just kind of accept status quo and not question, why are we doing this, or what impact does it have? How can we better leverage this, to drive up the ROI, And so, we wanted to set the example for others to say, let's go have an independent study, go figure it out, And it was during a time of, the pandemic just hitting. We launched this and executed this earlier in the year. Pandemic hitting, record volumes, very, very busy time. But thankfully, we have such a strong customer base and really a strong and influential product where we got amazing participation and great data back that really validated who we are and what we're doing. But again, we think this is a good example for everyone to be able to, to take a more inquisitive look at how you're conducting your business and where can you make improvements constantly.
And that's what I love about you guys, Ben, is you guys are looking for ways to improve everybody. This wasn't just a study done for like, oh, we're just going to do this for our top users. You did this for the entirety of all SimpleNexus users. Those even, not even like, this could be a benefit to people not even currently using SimpleNexus. They just got to like, hey, how is this going to be beneficial to me? So Jordan, when somebody approaches you, and what was your first reaction? I'm sure you've heard of SimpleNexus. What was your reaction when a company like SimpleNexus approaches you and says, hey, we want this third-party study done?
Well, the first piece is to coach them that this is not, it's not a simplistic, send out a survey and check a box type of thing and hey, we're done.
Send out a tweet to everybody and expect results. That's not happening, right?
Yeah, it's a fairly significant analytical event in that you have to really both design an analysis where you capture the right data, one. Two, you have to really dig into the cross-section of all lenders and all lender types to make it valid. And then three, you really have to be committed to understand the transparency that this is going to put upon you and be open to that. So those are the three coaching points from really day one, not to mention when Ben approached me, which I appreciated, but when Ben approached me, we were in the absolute height of the pandemic. So we didn't know how things were going to go in terms of getting a response. So we had both a balance of global pandemic going on in February and March that was, peaking with a lot of unknowns out there, plus a refi boom where lenders were super busy. So, we balanced all that and came up with a program that worked and had exceptional results. I do this day in, day out, right? So, we had exceptional results for both getting data back, but also the clarity and the consistency of the data, which is really more important than getting data back. The clarity and the consistency within the actual results coming back from lenders and the participation from lenders told me the story right, squarely kind of from day one.
So before we get into this data, Jordan, Ben, were you guys nervous at all to be like, well, this might come back really bad, like especially at the height of it? Were you guys nervous at all? Or you're like, nope, we want to just prove. What were your thoughts going into this?
You can never be nervous to pursue the truth, right? We want to know. We want to know what's out there. We want to know, how do we improve? How do we leverage what we have? Have certainty and validation, right? Third-party validation. And that's how we strive to run our business. And I think that's a commonality in a lot of well-run businesses is, you don't want to just trust what you're thinking in your head. You want to see what the truth is and play in reality. So.
Dude, I love it. All right, Jordan. So Ben, that was like a mic drop. I wish we could almost end the show on that. Like that was brilliant, dude. Well said. So Jordan, these guys, SimpleNexus approaches you, Ben approaches you and says, okay, we want to know. We want to make sure that we get the most up-to-date, most validated information. They come to you and you guys start to study. You guys started at the height, like you said, at this pandemic. And I'm excited to get in some of these numbers and some of these results because these findings are brilliant.
So there's a number of approaches that are solid tools in the toolbox to figure these things out. If all things were normal, the best tool is to look at the financials. Financial impact between when you started on something to when you went to the next, A and B. Eliminating all the chaff in between, but looking at the financial impacts. We chose to look at both the financial and the operational impacts. So we designed an operational survey with a lot of thought that went into it by individual role. So, if you were an originator, and a loan officer, you had a set of questions that was very specific for your type of role. If you're an underwriter, a different type of set of questions, and it filtered through. So the first thing was really thinking through and understanding the product. So that was the first mission on my side. Understanding what is this all about in terms of SimpleNexus, and what do I think it's all about, and then capturing that within a survey. The second piece is then capturing the set of people to go out to, right, and making sure that it's in an appropriate cross section of the mortgage industry, so it's predictive going forward. So our end goal is to get data back from a lender base and say, hey, okay, this is your experience. What would be the average experience of a typical lender that looks relatively the same as the lenders that were queried? So if you are a credit union or a independent mortgage company, what is your experience with SimpleNexus, right? And how long have you had that experience? So, which is a critical piece. So in the case of SimpleNexus, is really interesting. Very different than many of the product lines that I deal with, daily, right? The average participant in the study has used SimpleNexus a little bit over 2 years.
Wow.
So that's a relatively short period as it goes. In sort of the more traditional LOSs and even point of sales, it's many more years, right? It may be 2 or 3 times that number, right? So this is a relatively new group using it. Then the next big sort of feedback point that I got as we went forward is how much are they really using it? Okay, which is absolutely critical, right? Because there's lots of point of sales out there. There's lots of ways that people originate loans. How are they really using it, right? So I found that about 80% are using it and have a lot more productivity than they had in the category of much more productivity than they had previously, and whatever they were previously using as a point of sale. And then the third point that I would say was predictive and important as a key driver was that what are the percentage of loans that are actually originated through the point of sale? And that's over 80%. So that is while that sounds maybe not perfect, that is much higher than some of their peers. And where their peers may be in the 50% range, 60% range, and lenders want to get to 100% on this in terms of the digital experience. SimpleNexus, in a relatively short period of time, with an average client of 2.11 years, has achieved, inadvertently or directly on purpose, achieved something that sort of rose to rose the eyebrows. And I didn't know going in, getting back to your original question, I didn't know going in how the data would look. It's a relatively new product into the industry. It's a relatively new group, and they've had some significant wins, but I didn't know. So I was very pleased and surprised, quite frankly, at the level of the granularity of the data that came back, but also more importantly, the quality and the participation.
So Ben, I want to know this too, before we get into some more of these actual hard numbers. When you actually release this data to your consumers, Ben, what were some of the reactions? Did you get your actual clients like reaching back like, wow, we knew SimpleNexus was amazing, but we had no idea that like it was this amazing?
Yeah, it was very satisfying for me were the participants. When we brought the data back to them, we said, hey, look, we're doing this study. We need your input. But again, we're going to partner with you in that when we get the data and we compile and analyze it, we'll bring it back to you and see and show how you compare to everyone else and how are you doing. and highlight these areas, you know, where you're getting ROI, so you can see it, you know, point blank for yourself. And they were very pleased, right? I mean, you know, to see, you know, every little piece of, hey, when we facilitate collecting documents through mobile devices, how much faster that happens and how much less time it takes, you know, from the processor to communicate with the borrower. Or when we, you know, execute disclosures and have them, you know, signed via mobile, both on a borrower and the loan officer side of the house, that process goes from 2.5 days down to 2.5 hours.
Ooh.
And that is just tremendous impact when you're just flooded and inundated with deals and deal flow, you know, as a lender, to be able to cut that much time off the process and free up your people to go be more productive and do more loans and create a better experience, you know, for the borrower, which also includes creating a better experience for the loan officer, the processor, the underwriter, you know, making everything flow more easily for them. They were very, very pleased to see in raw dollars and raw time allotments, you know, how much time this product is saving them and how much money this product is making them. You know, everybody likes to see that they've made a good investment.
Time equals money, baby. Like, and that's just it. The efficiencies and all about it. So, all right, we got people in our chat. We got people like, let's hear these numbers. We're excited for some of these numbers. So Jordan, let's talk actual numbers, because when when you shared some of these numbers with me as we were talking about it, I was like, oh my goodness, like these are big numbers. So let's talk about, because it's from not only from just ROI, but from increase in leads, conversion of those leads and applications to even additional. All right, so let's start talking some of these numbers. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think they're really two, right? One is, it comes back to questions. Can a technology help speed up the process? The answer is it did. The average respondent came back and said, hey, it took about 1.5 days out of the processing cycle.
Oh.
So that was an average. That was an average response, you know. So, and it was pretty consistent. It was anywhere from 0.5 day to 2.5 days.
Wow.
You know, and almost everybody was in the, you know, 1.5, 1, you know, 2, you know, category. So there wasn't a lot of flux between that. So I feel very confident that's the right number. So that's number one. That translates helps translate into getting more deals. The average respondent indicated that 12.8% increase in closed loan volume, so leads to loan. Now, that I thought was high initially, but I really, you know, dug into it, and that is the average response. There aren't a lot of outliers. There aren't a lot of, you know, small numbers or big numbers. It's a good number.
Mm-hmm.
So when you increase your lead to loan, what does that really mean, right? So when you dig beyond and sort of uncover what, you know, the sheen around that number, what's really happening there? So what's really happening was interesting. What's really happening is loan officers are sharing the application with realtors and with borrowers. And the chaff of getting data back, documents back, signing back from borrowers and involving realtors with the entire transaction process is actually the chaff that's driving the increase in both satisfaction, but ultimately turning into loans.
Mm-hmm.
And once you turn into loans, that 12% plus turns into an average loan officer is doing about 6 loans more per year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take 6 loans more per year, you're over, even in my very, very reasonable and conservative level. There's some recent numbers out of the MBA on per loan profitability that is in the, you know, $4,000 plus. But even if you use a number like $500, you know, on net profitability, that average loan per, average increase per lender is over $3,000. Was actually $30,160.
See, and this, I want to make sure we clear, this is something that's big. This is above and beyond. This isn't this is above net profit. This is something utilizing a tool and systems that you should already have in place. That's how cool this is. I want to make sure this is ringing home with people, because this is a big deal that SimpleNexus has created and that they continue to do. So sorry, Jordan, I don't mean to interrupt there, but
so that is, consider it $3,160 is what we found on average per LO increase in net income for an operation.
Dang.
So when you're looking at it, if you have 100 LOs, it's a pretty straightforward, calculation as to what you would expect on average if you perform just at the mean. If you do a great job, there are folks that do a better job than that, right? If you're a little below the mean, it's still a great number, right? So that's on average. But really when it gets down to is conversion of leads to loans, and taking the transactional friction out of dealing with borrower to loan officer, borrower to processor, or loan officer to realtor, and that entire loop of time. So that's one piece in terms of adding new loans. There's also another segment to this in terms of when I look at ROI, which is does it save operational time, which we talked about a day and a half, right? But also, does it take time out of a processor's life? Sure it does. We know it takes several hours out, and we have specific numbers that we got back. On average, it's $258 in terms of operational savings per loan. So the combination of both the operational, so the ROI is playing on two levels here. One is expanding the pie, so making more loans as a result of a better process or less friction in the process. And then it's expanding, it's also decreasing the expense side. So when I look at return on investment on a per loan basis, on an individual lender basis, and project things out, that's the analytics essentially driving the models and the results behind it. So it's pretty deep in terms of understanding, but at its core, it is very simple. It's, can you increase the number of loans? Yes, no, how much? And can you decrease the amount of time that it takes? And what does that time actually work? And does it speed up the process? That's really it. And it's true core.
And everything that you have talked about, everything we've mentioned, they went above and beyond all those benchmarks. They exceeded every single one of them. And Ben, coming back to you, because this is something, going into a study like this, kind of like I mentioned, as a company, you were confident, you wanted the truth, and the truth clearly came through for you guys. And this is just the mentality that SimpleNexus has. I mean, these numbers that Jordan has shared to me, when I first heard them, I was like, this is insane. The value that your users are actually getting is just, this is a no-brainer. To me, this is absolutely a no-brainer. It's super exciting, but this is just who you guys are as a company, Ben.
Yeah, totally. I mean, because like I said, we wanted to know, and we wanted to know both to be able to say, okay, where do we need to improve, or what do we need to tweak and make better, or also to say, how do we leverage this data to better help our existing customers, to get more ROI, make sure they're taking advantage of everything, and how do we communicate and bring this to the market more clearly, and to say, here are the exact pieces that before we might have inferred that we help, but now we know, we can quantify how we help, and it makes it more efficient and clear, really, when we go engage in a new sale. We don't have to rely on any crazy sales tactics or anything like that. We can just lay out what is, and be more consultative and guide somebody through, okay, this is how you conduct business, and this is, where your bottlenecks are today, or how long it takes you to do these things. Well, with this technology, we can address these points for you and drive this type of ROI. And so it's just the way we want to operate in more absolutes.
Dude, and that's what I love, working in absolutes. And there was actually a quote in this study that I was probably the most excited about: in an act of bold transparency. That's what SimpleNexus is all about. It's all about transparency. You mentioned that earlier, Ben, and having somebody like Jordan Brown and his team, really, who is such a reputable company in all of mortgage, going into tech. We know, and we've talked about this before, is there's so many technology companies. I like to call them, the shiny object that are popping up here left and right. And it's so great and such a breath of fresh air when a company like SimpleNexus comes out and says, you know what, we're putting our money where our mouth is. We're going to back up all this information, everything that we're saying. And Jordan, it's even fun to watch Jordan's reaction as he's talking about some of these numbers, because even he was surprised. He was like, wow, I've been doing this for a long time, and even I'm pretty impressed by it. So
yeah, I mean, they definitely exceeded the benchmarks, is what I would say.
They exceeded the benchmarks, as they always do. SimpleNexus continues to be one of the forefront leaders, of the visionaries, and it's because of incredible people like Ben, Matt, Sid, their entire team over at SimpleNexus. It's just not just a few of them. There's a huge team that is all behind this, and I see some of them. Tony, and we're going to give a shout out to Tony, because he is always Tony Pitcher. Always rocking it for SimpleNexus. This guy is just on fire as well. Huge shout out to SimpleNexus and the entire team. Jordan, I want to thank you for your time and everything that you did to put out these numbers, because again, this is big for our industry. Some of the companies that you mentioned you have worked with some of the best in our industry, and SimpleNexus is right up there with the elite. And again, Ben, it's just exciting and cool to see that you as a leadership team decided to do this, and look at the results, man. It paid off. I can just see the smile on your face, Ben, of like, yep, this was well worth our time and money. So
yes. Yeah, thank you.
So
again, great opportunity to talk about it today.
Huge shout out to Jordan and huge shout out to Ben. And guys, if you haven't already seen it, I've had the link the entire time below, the Tech ROI Calculator. Right now, you can go to simplenexus.com/ROI. Do it right now. See if the tech if what you're using is actually giving you an ROI. And if you're choking there. If you're not using SimpleNexus, you need to. Jordan just gave you the numbers. Like, these are average numbers. Go do it right now. Get the information below. And if you guys have more questions, make sure you comment below, and we'll get to your questions if we can't get to them here on the show. But as always, we appreciate you guys. Jordan Brown, thank you so very much for joining us. Ben Miller from SimpleNexus, you guys are incredible. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys, with that, we're out of time. As always, we appreciate you. We love you. And now it's time for you to go shred.